Morning, my friend. I've got some cool things to share with you this morning from the Word. I'm in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, and sometimes I see things that are really profound, but they're also very applicable to business. And I want to share something with you that I'd never seen before, but I saw it in the recent days, and I began to study it out, and I want to share it with you. So if you're in business or you want to be in business, that at all, anything like that, you're going to really appreciate this, I hope. It's in Mark chapter 12, and it's the parable of the vine dresser. That's what they call it, the parable of the wicked vine dresser. And Jesus begins the story. He says, a man planted a vineyard and he set a hedge around it, dug a place for the wine vat, and he built a tower. Those are the three things he did once he planted the vineyard. I planted it, and he does three things in preparation to the actual property itself. Put a hedge, dug a place for the vat, and built a tower. And then he leased it to the vine dressers and went away. Now what happened is the vine dressers, they're under contract with him, whatever, but they decide, hey, we're going to keep this. And so when it came time for the owner to get the crop, he sent his messengers, and they beat some, they whipped some, they threw stones at some, and then killed some. And then finally he sends his own son, thinking, well, maybe they would believe him or they would respect him, but they didn't, and they killed the son. Now it's a parable, of course. Jesus is talking about the prophets that were killed and beaten and so forth, and himself coming and ultimately being killed by them as well. And he said at the end, what's going to happen is, what is the owner going to do? Well, what he's going to do is he's going to destroy those people that did that to him and give the property to somebody else, give the vineyard to somebody else. Now we've always heard it talked about in a church situation or spiritual situation, the church and Israel and so forth, which it appropriately fits. But I always look for models. So here's God describing a business, and he's describing something. He said, this is how it was done. And of course, God is he's the person who planted the vineyard in this story. So then we said, well, what did he do? So here it is, ready? Number one, he planted a vineyard. Now get this is really important, okay? I want you to understand this. How many of you want to start a business, thought about starting a business, haven't started a business yet? You think, okay, I got to get this ready, I got to get this ready. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, there's a weed out in the field. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. It's not the rainy season yet. Oh, now it's too late. It's raining too hard. Oh, wait a minute. Now it's too late in the year. Or whatever. And we oftentimes put off. Rule number one for success is you got to plant the vineyard. And the vineyard is your business. So number one, get started. Really big deal. That's one of the biggest things I see, the hesitancy that people have, always planning and trying to work things out and never actually planting the vineyard, which involves risk. Because when you plant the vineyard, when you plant your business, you got to take some money and bury it in the ground and hope. Seed, of course, I'm talking about, and hope or expect in the case of this guy. But when you're starting a business, you're putting money into it and you're burying it essentially, because it goes into sort of unseen, and then you think, I sure hope it comes back, right? Well, you need to go from hope to expectation. We'll cover that in a second. He says, so he planted the vineyard. So step number one, have you planted your vineyard yet? And number two, it says, he set a hedge around it. Okay, a hedge? Yeah. You see, in ancient times, the Bible talks about a hedge of protection. That's covenantal language. God didn't put a hedge around, Job. He didn't put a hedge around people like bougainvilleas all around their property. He didn't do that. It's covenantal language. It's contractual agreement, if you will. So in business, number one, you got to get started. Number two, what can you do to put a hedge around your business? How can you put some protection around it? What kind of covenants or agreements can you put in place that would be appropriate for this? Well, I'll give you an example. Because you're thinking, I don't know. Well, I'll tell you. 1988, I wrote my very first book, The Bible Incorporated in Your Life, Job, and Business. And I self-published the book. Didn't have any money. I ordered 25,000 leather-bound books to be delivered to my basement. It's going to cost me about $100,000. And by the way, I didn't have $100,000. I didn't have $10,000. I'm not even sure I had $1,000 at the time. But I had an expectation. See, expectation is so... We'll get there in a minute. And so what I did was, and I didn't even know the model here, but this is what I did. I put in place a hedge. In other words, I put in place contracts long before the harvest, before the books ever rolled off the printing press. And the contracts were, I went to various distributors, and I sold thousands and thousands and thousands of books before it even rolled off the press. And then I did some other things and got on national television, on Christian TV, global television really, on a Christian network of sorts, a big one at the time, INSP I think it was called at the time. And so, but I had these contracts in place. That's a hedge of protection. See, a lot of times you start a business and you think, okay, and then you build it and everything. And you think, I built it. Aren't they coming? Huh? I'll tell you what a wise man does. He puts a hedge of protection around it. He puts some contracts in place. They may be with vendors. You want to have, like, for example, maybe the contract could be with having great terms. You're just starting your business. Hey, I need longer terms. I need 90-day terms or something like that. Whatever your hedge is, you put contracts in place to help ensure success. So you plant, you put contracts around or agreements in place they could be with workers, they could be with contractors, they could be with potential customers, all that. And then it says, he dug a place for the wine vat. Why would you do that? There's only one reason. Sorry for the shaking here. The only reason you dig the place of the wine vat is because you are expecting a fruitful harvest. This is really important. You see, most people I know, and I've been guilty of this myself, it's more like, well, we sure hope it works out. You know, hope's a beautiful thing, but it doesn't get the job done. Hope is just like a placeholder. Expectation is faith. Jesus said in Mark 11:24, he said, whatsoever things you desire when you pray, believe that you have received them already, and you will have them. That's the ESV version, but that's the more accurate version of it. And so there's an expectation. So I'm going to tell you something. You want to succeed in business, you're going to have to plant. You got to get started. It would be very good to have some covenantal agreements, some agreements in place to help ensure your success. And number 3, you want to make sure, as far as it's possible, that you are expecting. You're walking with an expectancy. When I ordered 25,000 copies of that book, you know what? The printer called me and said, are you crazy? He said, the average publisher in America, the average book, published in America never sells more than 5,000 copies. And that's with existing publishers who have distribution outlets and thousands of customers in the bookstores and that kind of thing, and they never order more than 5,000 copies. And you're not a publisher, you're just a guy with a big basement. 25,000 books, are you crazy? He didn't say, are you crazy? But anyway, I had an expectation. I put my hand over the phone and said, Lord, what do you think? He said, let's do it. So I went ahead and ordered the 25,000. I had no idea that was not done until that guy told me. But you know what? I expected. That book went on to become one of the best-selling Christian business books of all time, selling hundreds of thousands of copies. So number 1, get started. Number 2, what kind of contracts can you put in place or agreements that you can put in place to help ensure your success and provide some protections? And number 3, have an expectation of success. You've got to have an expectation, not a hope. Hope's fine, but you got to have more than just hope. Expectation. And then it says, and he built a tower. Whoa, he built a tower. Why? You think it was to observe the stars? No, of course not. He built a tower because in those days, you kind of want to keep an eye on the vineyard. You want to see, okay, who's working? And it's hard to go up and down all the aisles all the time and see what everybody's doing. But if you build a tower and you get above, you can kind of keep an eye on all that and you survey it. My friend, this is about accountability. That's what it is. I'm keeping an eye. It's about the metrics. I'm seeing who's pulling the weight, who's doing the work, and making sure that everything's running the way it's supposed to be. So your business to succeed not only has to get started, number 1. Number 2, it helps to have good contracts in place. Number 3, definitely have expectation. And number 4, accountability. That's what I want to put out to you. Now, of course, he in the story here, he leased it out to some other people. Basically, today it would be similar to a person starting a company, and then he puts in a CEO, he puts in other people, and he says, okay, I'm going to go start another business, like maybe Warren Buffett or somebody, and they get some, actually he buys the businesses, but nonetheless, you have these people in place, and you hope they do a good job. And sometimes, perhaps they think, you know what, we really did all the hard work. We want to take it over ourselves. Well, in today's vernacular, you wouldn't go destroy the people. What you do is you say, you're fired, and you go on from there. But anyway, I hope this is helpful to you. It's a real eye-popper to me. It's in Mark chapter 12, the parable of the wicked vine dresser, and the business lesson that is there, I think, will help a lot of people. I know it's helping me. Thanks so much. God bless you. Hey, listen, quick thing. Would you please like this, share this, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed? It's a way of helping us get our message out. And of course, that kind of organic traffic is always good for us. And so if you would do that, I would really, really appreciate it. So thanks so much. God bless.